what a perfect song to talk about the challenges that we've been going through in life, and we all go through them. How to deal with them and how to learn from them and how to move beyond them. Melanie and Jeannie have covered this beautifully over the last few weeks because we all go through tough times. There's not one of us that had challenges or had crises come up in our lives that we must deal with. So why do we have these challenges in life? You know, where do they come from? And more importantly, how do they stop? And the only constant in life is one thing: change. And so the crisis can be a huge crisis or a little crisis. I always say, is it just a brick in the road or is it a brick wall? And I would rather just have a brick in the road so I can go over it or around it. But when I have things seem like a brick wall and I'm just running right into it and it just brings me to a dead stop, even there's a gift there too if we take the time to look for it. Often, change comes through these major crises, and we fall. We have no concept of how do I deal with that. You know, I wound up flat on my back in a hospital room in critical condition, and you know, I couldn't walk without help, and talk about things just coming to a standstill. And like I've shared many times, I was ready to die. I was all set. So the doctor came in and said, you know, this is treatable. And it was like, oh crap, you think I gotta live? I was all ready to go on to the next life. But it was a crisis that I had to absorb, and I had to make it all right no matter what the outcome was. I had to make it all right whether I lived or whether I died. And when I found that point, I felt great peace. It didn't matter how it was going to come together. I was going to be all right with it because I knew God was guiding me every step of the way. When we look at our myths and our stories, have you ever seen Clash of the Titans? It was on last night. And it's about the demigods, which is Perseus, and then there was another demigod, which is Hercules, which were sons of God, of Zeus, and of a mortal woman. And these demigods in their stories always go through great, great challenges. Perseus was the one that cut off the head of the Medusa to save the princess from being killed by the Kraken. And it's quite the, if you ever get a chance to see Clash of the Titans, it's worth watching. It's been on TV quite a bit of times. But it's also, our myths talk about people going through crisis. Great heroes and heroines always have crises that they go through. It's as if these challenges are put here, are attracted to us, to somehow crack us open to a new way of being. And if we wouldn't do it any other way other than something that comes and just stops us still in our steps. It makes us into a new way of, I'm going to put quotes around the word being. And being, as described by Webster, is the complex of spiritual qualities that constitutes an individual. The complex of spiritual qualities that constitutes an individual. When we're changing our way of being, it's we're accessing new spiritual qualities that maybe we haven't looked at. Maybe we've put aside. Maybe we didn't even know we had until we suddenly come into this crisis situation. And so there's a blessing in having some of these situations because it's like, and it may not be easy for us because we think, well, this is the way it's always worked, this is the way my life has always looked, and when we realize it's time for our life to look differently. It's how easy can we handle what's coming up for us. Whether it's looking for a new job, whether it's a health situation, whether it's recovery, whether it's a move, whether, a relationship. No matter what it is, it's what can we access within our being that we haven't accessed before. Our, quote, being is that ineffable, indescribable part of us that remains constant and courageous regardless of what is happening around us. We are heroes and heroines. We have the courage to face whatever comes at us. If we didn't, it wouldn't be there for us. We wouldn't have attracted it to us. It's something that we're demanding of ourselves to learn and to grow from. It drives us to make new decisions, or perhaps pushes us to take action that previously we would never have thought of. So there's a gift in that. In short, these times are attracted to us when it is time to change. And our choice is it a brick in the road or a brick wall? We make the choice and how we're going to react to it. We look within and we discover new abilities, new choices, even new identities, and none of this may be comfortable to look at. I know as I lay there in that hospital bed, I looked back and I thought, okay, I just retired from being a senior minister, so I was no longer the minister of a church. Then my husband died, so now I'm a widow. And then I had cancer and had to have all this assistance and help. Who in the hell was I? Because everything that I had identified myself as had disappeared. So I had to literally go inside and find that constant and courageous part of me that knew how to deal with this. Is that, okay, I'm going to have to identify myself differently. Who am I going to be now? And the choice was mine. Remember, what was it? I can't remember if it was Jeannie or Melanie said that the next chapter in our life we write. It's up to us to how we're going to write it. Do you want to write it as this great, serious drama? You can even write it as a comedy if you want. Or you can write it as something that, okay, I have the ability to deal with this. That doesn't mean you don't sit down and cry about it. You know, you got to get those emotions out so you can get to that place underneath that can handle it, but you got to vent. And so, I mean, I did my share of that too. But then I found a new way of being. I found the character I fit in. What do I have to offer? And I found it here at One World. That I could be your substitute minister. Fill me in whenever you need me. And I love it. It just gives me enough to do, and working with the chaplains, just enough to do that I feel like I'm giving. And I feel like I have a role here, yet it's not filled with all the huge responsibilities that I used to have because I simply can't deal with that anymore. I got to also take care of my health. So you can always revamp who you are. Write a new identity for yourself based on where you are and what's available to you. I love the statement that Wayne Dyer makes. He says, when you are what you do, when you don't, you aren't. Let me say that one again. When you are what you do, when you don't, you aren't. So we're so identified with the degrees we have, the jobs we have, the relationships we have. You know, we have some people that constantly have to be in a relationship, and they go from one relationship to the next, and yet none of them are healthy because they're not going in deep to find out what is a healthy relationship. Not having one doesn't mean that it's a healthy one. So you have to, you have to go deep inside yourself to find out who am I and who is that person that would be a complement to that relationship. Or in your job situation. I mean, when you retire, it's a big thing. You know, you really do lose you've always been identified by the job that you do, and suddenly you're not. So now who are you? Or, you know, you have your jobs, you have your relationships. Even with Scott, when I couldn't imagine my life when you lose your spouse. I lost my parents. You know, I think the only thing that's harder is losing a child. But when you lose a spouse, it really hurts because that's that support system that's right there. I mean, many people can understand that. But again, you have to move on, even if you're putting one foot in front of the other. I've got to tell you, I was so busy venting and grieving Scott. The one thing that got me to stop doing that was cancer. it kind of got my mind off of it. So maybe there's a few perks to having cancer, and maybe that was one of them. I don't know. But it also got me outside of really thinking about him and really putting myself forward, which is probably why the cancer came on anyway. I was so busy caring for him that I forgot to think anything about myself. So I had to switch and reevaluate and shift my identity to say, sometimes, Sydney, you have to put yourself first. Linda and I've talked about it. Linda's going like, mm-hmm. Sometimes we have to put ourselves first, and it's sometimes not the easiest thing for those of us that are caregivers and doers and you know, love to be there with other people. It's one of the biggest challenges in our life to learn that sometimes we need to take care of ourselves first. So we've gone through all of this, talking about the crises in our lives. We've talked about how do we change? How do we shift? Are you willing to do things differently? How have you moved through crisis situations? We always like to do this sharing at the end of any series to get your input into it as we're talking about it. Because face it, you are the hero or the heroine of your own life. You're the person that has survived so much. And all of us have gone through our times of challenge and our times of frustration and our times of losing ourselves and losing our identity. The trick is knowing that you will survive whatever is thrown at you because you are a hero. You are a hero in your own life. For me, I had to look at what I could physically do and what I had to offer and find a place that could use the experiences I had. So I found a new identity, and it's working for me. I hope it's working.